What up, Chosen family? It's your boy, Michael Turpak, coming to you live for another edition of Chosen, where we have candid conversations with God's chosen people. It is episode 9. I am super excited about tonight. It's been incredible to see what God has been doing through this show. I've been very grateful. I've heard such great feedback from so many people. So thank you guys for tuning in. Before we introduce tonight's guest, I do have a quick plug. Let me see if I can pull it up. So we are building a team for this thing. We're building a team. And so we are actually looking to, I think the top 2 priorities would be a video editor. So if you know somebody or you can edit video, I'm like super subpar at editing video. So if you could do that, or if you are interested in like producing this thing, you know what I mean? We have a big dog on the show today. So if you're interested in meeting people like the big dog, we would love that. So we are building a team. Email us at teamchosen@gmail.com, teamchosen@gmail.com if you are interested in doing that. That'd be great. But let us hop into the show. I am incredibly excited for tonight's guest. He goes by Pastor Deryck Frye. Really, though, he goes by PD, and I like to call him the Vin Diesel. Okay, he is a second generation lead pastor of Connect Church in Ashland, Mass, which is my home church. He is actually my pastor. He has been married to his beautiful wife, Stacy, for 28 years. And I think we can show some love for him for that. 28 years is a big deal. And he also has four adult kids, and technically 5 if you count his daughter-in-law. So he also has 3 grandchildren, 3 little grandkids, little baby boys that are super cute. They are his pride and joy. I love them all too, and I know PD does. But I thought this was crazy. I was looking at it. He has been in ministry for 28 years. Somebody pray for this guy. Like, Lord have mercy. Somebody pray for PD. 28 years of faithfulness in ministry. I love that about him. On a lighter note, though, this man is an absolutely massive human being. Like, he is huge. You think I'm kidding? His biceps are literally the size of my quads. They are. If you looked at them, they're the exact same size as my quads. And I'm pretty sure on his days off, I'm pretty sure he deadlifts cars on his day off. It is rumored to be true that he does. I don't know if it's true. But he is, on a more personal note, he is my pastor. I'm proud to be a part of his ministry. I remember when I first moved here, it's funny. I'm reminded of, I asked him, just for a little bit of feedback, like, hey, like, what can I do to fit in the ministry, stuff like that. And I remember this Vox that he sent me, and it was like, at the end of it, I was like hurt in the best way. I'm like, oh, but he was like, he was pastoring me from the moment I got here. He started to pastor me, and I would say that I was a very unhealthy leader when I first got here, and he helped me to become healthy-ish. I guess I could say. I'm getting there. But without further ado, I wanted to bring to the screen Pastor Deryck Frye.
What's going on, everybody? Come on.
PD, welcome. Hey, I worked on it all day. I got rid of 3 jokes. They would have been good. They were probably a little too far. No, but I am. Yes, I'm healthy-ish. I'm getting there. No, I'm super excited about tonight, PD. For somebody who doesn't know you, obviously I gave you pretty good intro, but maybe just a little bit about, who you are, how long you've been pastoring, what that's been like, the church that you pastor, stuff like that. That'd be great.
Sure. I mean, first of all, Mikey, you know how much I love you. For those of you who don't, I just have a very familial quality to me. So, I refer to Mikey as one of my spiritual sons. So it's great to be on this side, and seeing you lead and being able to participate in this is an honor. And on top of that, Mike, I hope you notice I got a clean shaven head just for you, bro. Just
Clean
for you.
shaven.
Just for you.
The clean shaven head. There is
Now
no
listen,
better feeling.
so you
You
don't
know,
usually see two just perfectly bald heads in such a strategically, location and proximity to one another. So that's special. But anyway, yeah. So you nailed a few high level things. Second generation pastor. I came out of a non traditional background. So though I've been in ministry a long time now, my daddy was an atheist. So he
mm,
was. An atheist who got converted. My mother was kind of a backslidden Christian, married my dad as an atheist. He had a lot of pressure on his life and a lot of issues and problems. He had this little phrase I always use. He was a wife beating, camel smoking, bourbon drinking, two-fisted atheist who got saved. And I
yes.
grew up. I grew up in the BC AC. I grew up in the before Christ when my dad was a rageaholic, to after Christ when he became, a Pentecostal preacher. And so I
Mm,
got to see this, Saul Paul kind of thing, and it really affected me in a profound way. And I think in many respects, I wouldn't be a Christian if it wasn't for the conversion of my father. And so, although my mother, was the faithful, she turned her life around under duress as well. So anyway, I came to faith, early in life, but I really surrendered my life when I was in high school,
mm.
and I got the call of God in my life when I was in college. And then I was raised in the church, but I didn't want to invite anybody to my church, and so there's a
Gotcha.
whole story with that we don't have time for, but I really wanted to, build a church where you could have, a merger of powerful and predictable in the same environment. And so we've worked
Mm,
for many years to create a space for God to move, in a place where people can feel safe and grow in their faith. And we don't have it all figured out, but we've come a long way over the years to do so. I have, lastly, I kind of have just a passion for leaders. So I used to wake up every day thinking about the people in my neighborhood who didn't know Jesus. And this will sound a little edgy to start, but I used to think about needs and people who weren't saved. And I still, I have a concern for that. I have a heart for evangelism, but I think about leaders. I wake up every day and think about how many
mm.
leaders can I touch? How many pastors can I influence, and how many churches can I leverage my life through? So that's how I've been living my life really for the last 10 years. And yeah, loving it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was um, at CLA the other day. I've been here for a few years at the church. I think I'm going on 4 years, which is kind of crazy to me just to think of like how fast time has gone. But I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, you're really, it feels like, and I don't know what that feels like for you. It seems like you're in this place right now where you're like in a stride in terms of like your impact, your communication. And obviously too, like you had an impression from God that this was like the year of multiplication. Like it was time to start multiplying. So when you were talking about leaders and influencing leaders, it
Mhm.
feels like that's almost like where God has kind of been bringing you. Would you say that that's true?
Yeah, I think so. I was impacted by a man named Billy Hornsby. He impacted a lot of people. He had a very multiplicative, fatherly spirit about him. He went home to be with Jesus, but he was the co-founder of a church affiliation that we're a part of called ARC. And
Hmm.
I remember him. He said this to many of his spiritual sons. But I remember him saying to me, he had this phrase. He said, "My successors are someone else's. My
Hmm.
successes are someone else's." And he was really just talking about legacy and succession, and I don't have to do it all myself. And I think when it comes to multiplication, I always thought, I'm going to have to build this mega church in New England. It's all going to be just through this local church. And I still believe that everybody has been given a portion. Parable of the talents, the 5-2-1 thing, everybody has a portion they're called to multiply. And I don't think I'm done multiplying the local church that God's called me to lead. But I do believe that a lot of the multiplication is coming through the people that I've been able to influence and lead, who are leading other churches or other ministries or other businesses. And so And just back to your statement about some sort of a stride, I think the realization of that has put me in a different level of influence in a lane that I really have come to embrace. And so I think that's sort of what is going on right now in my life. And
Hmm.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know PD, so we're over in Ashland, Massachusetts. That's where the church is. But we are going regional, which is super exciting. Like it's fun to be a part of a vision that's not like stagnant. It's like this, like, I don't know, this energy or this vision, and it feels like we're all kind of moving in this one direction. But what a lot of you guys don't know, there's a gym that PD goes to. Okay. And it's probably in Ashland too. It's probably in Ashland. So before we hop into the emotional health part of this interview, I gotta add, this is the most important question of tonight.
Of course.
Most important. I should have started with this. I'm asking for a friend. What is your PR for bench press?
How did I know? How did I know?
PD, I just need to know. I think everybody needs to know though. What is the PR?
Are we talking about today? If I walked in the gym today, are we talking about like all-time best?
No, I'm saying PD is hacked. You're like on 8 meals a day.
No,
This is like 5 years ago.
this is a spirit of exaggeration.
I'm saying when you were the most hacked, what
Mm.
was your highest?
Gosh, I can't even believe I'm even remotely considering this. My wife will probably rebuke me for this. Yeah. Anyway, I like to pick things up and put things down. So everybody has
Yep.
different athletic abilities or portions. So I just found out early in life, I should say, and it's manifested later, that I was just kind of inherently strong for even my size. So I'm not as big as he says. I'm about a 230-pound man. But yeah, deadlift, bench, squat. I think my best squat is like a 575. My deadlift's a
Jeez.
640, and then my best bench in a competition is a 425. But I've been known to bounce a 440 off my chest.
440?
I did that bench. Yeah, I don't squat like that anymore. I haven't squatted competitively in about 10 years, and I stopped deadlifting competitively about 2 years ago. I'm 52 years old. But I can still bench a lot of weight right now. So yeah.
Jeez. I know
But you
Mike.
know
I
what?
think
When
Mike
the
does it.
sun comes out, the guns come out. So that's what's up.
You know what's so funny though is that I really feel like so many people are in our ministry are like wanted to start lifting because they're pastor. They're like, dude, I just gotta get like, I was literally right before this interview, I was like, you know what? I'm going to the gym. I'm like, if I'm interviewing PD tonight, I need to go to the gym.
God
One,
uses it. It's funny. I really do surrender it to him in all sincerity. I surrendered this part of my life to him many years ago. I will stop my workout to witness to people and share my faith and things like that. But it is interesting how, man looks at outward appearances. And so there's no doubt in my mind that I've been able to influence a lot of people through a discipline that's been a part of my life. And obviously, any discipline or anything in excess can be detrimental and idolatrous. But
mhm.
for me, I've been able to keep it in check. In the last 15 or so years. In the early years, it was much more excessive and surface. But I'm going to keep doing it. When I'm 70, people are going to be saying a lot more when I'm 70. Right now, I'm 52. But when I'm 70, still doing this, people are going to say there'll be a bigger followership even then. That's my goal.
It for sure is too, because it's like and that kind of goes along with what we'll be talking about tonight, because it's like longevity in ministry, and obviously you can speak to that more than a lot of pastors can. And there's even an article I was reading recently of like a really well-known pastor who, and it's not just for one pastor, but there's moral failure, and there's people that fail on all different levels, and it's hard. It's very, very, very difficult to be a pastor. And so that's why tonight I think it's a great topic to talk about, how to be emotionally healthy in a culture of distraction when we're constantly distracted. And so I loved your message. We were at a conference at our church recently, and like Pastor Deryck was saying, he's really in a a place in his life right now where he gets to multiply through leaders. And we had, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, 60, 70, 80
Yeah.
leaders at the church. And I think like 50 senior pastors from all around New England, stuff like that. And so can you tell us a little bit about what God placed on your heart in terms of emotional health, longevity in ministry, stuff like that?
Yeah, right before I got on this podcast, I was brushing my teeth and I was squeezing the toothpaste, and I was just thinking about, as the squeeze comes on, whatever is inside comes out.
Hmm.
And emotional health is like that. It's just when the squeeze is on, it reveals our emotional health. And I think that crisis has been in this pandemic crisis is, from this pandemic, it's a great exaggerator. Like the problems might
Hmm.
have already been there, but the crisis exaggerates it. And that, coupled with just years of ministry, I guess now just seeing that a lot of people who have fallen, who have taken their life in ministry or out of ministry, it has to do with unhealthy emotions, the
Hmm.
inability, so I say emotional health is the ability, to handle adversity, failure, criticism, change, pressure in a positive way.
Hmm.
And a lot of people can't do that. And so I just thought, if I want to give people something that's extremely relevant, and if there are any tools to improve that, man, we need them all. We need them all. So
Hmm.
I just, it was a pinky touch of really what is involved to stay emotionally healthy.
Hmm. Yeah, for me, I remember when I first came to Connect, there was moments of immaturity that I started to see in me emotionally. And if you would have asked me to, like, I didn't even know that that was really a thing until I got to Connect. I was like, I started to talk to Pastor Devin, and he was like, "Hey, man," because there were some things going on in my family, in and out of the hospital, stuff like that, with some stuff, and I was just like, when the waves of the world started to hit, I started to realize I'm like, I'm actually not emotionally as stable as I thought I was, but because before. So maybe you could talk to us a little bit about that because, Jesus, when he was in the middle of the storm, he was sleeping. And I try to ask him, how are you sleeping? And so maybe you could touch upon maybe a storm that you went through, or something that um, you had wrestled through, and maybe where you saw that there was like some emotional immaturity or something like that, and how you've grown to be the man of God that you are today, because I feel like we all go through that process and we're all somewhere along that. So,
Yeah. Well, the disciples with Jesus in the storm, they were all, he's sleeping, but contrast that with their emotional health. They thought they were all going to drown. So
mm,
you're seeing in the same boat, or you could say the same circumstance or situation, two different responses directly correlated to their emotional health. And
mm,
so I just think that I teach a lot of times, um, you know, what Jesus said, peace that I give you, I don't give you like the world gives you. So, but peace for a world system, and
it's good.
even by default, because of our human nature, is what I call peace like a pond. We want everything
Mm,
around us to be quiet and calm, and it's really more a calm within. It's not peace like a pond, it's peace like a river. So everything can be
mm,
crazy, but I have peace within. That's true emotional health, or a sign of emotional health. But when uncertainty comes, sometimes calm goes. And so I think a lot of the
mm,
uncertainty of COVID, I consider myself a pretty emotionally stable person. My wife would say by nature I'm like this, and then if things hit, if she and I are good, I'm like this. But man, COVID blindsided me in different ways this year.
mm,
It was, I think, the impact on what I thought was going to happen. So like unmet expectations. I expected to be here doing that at this point in time, and then that was just like, thrown out the window, whether it be with the church or the businesses that I oversee, or some of the plans that I had, I was blindsided by the duration of this thing. It was just like wave after wave after wave, like day after day after day. First couple months I was fine. I actually enjoyed some of the insulation from everything, but it was just daily, daily. So that was tough, and we had, it revealed like whatever in COVID, whatever was bad got worse, whatever was good,
Yes.
I think got better. So like my marriage got better, praise God, and it was good. And so Stacy and I thankfully love to be with each other. So there was things about that were great, but there were some things in the family that were revealed that were hits. We had some crisis with one of my kids, and it was hard. It was like, wow, I wasn't, and that created some extreme emotion, and it revealed some gaps, in my emotional health. So I could give other ones, but I would say professionally, the church, the businesses, and the just unending, unrelenting aspect of this, and having to pivot and adapt and grind it out for so long, not just for a short season, but just like it's still happening, like it's still going on right now, and then some relational stuff really challenged me emotionally. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember it was March. I just got a new job, and I was like going in, I felt like this is the funniest part about like emotional health. I was like, okay, I had applied for this job for like 6 months, and
Mhm.
I was excited. I'm like, man, I'm going in the right direction. I feel like life is like pushing me, I don't know, somewhere like positive. I'm like, okay, I'm going positive. And then 3 months of training, and then immediately I was laid off. And I actually remember too, the first person that I messaged was you. I literally said, "PD, could you pray for me?
Which was
I
a
just
good
got laid off."
response. That was a good,
Yeah,
that was a good decision.
I had to. I was like, "Man," I had felt like I was going in the right direction, and then which like what you were saying, it was like it caught me off guard, which is funny about emotional health. Emotional health isn't something that where it's like, where you see where you're at in the good times.
Yeah.
It's not the good times that reveals how like, are you level? Are you built on a good foundation?
Yeah.
Like, where is your foundation? I remember asking myself questions years ago when I first came to Connect. I was like, I don't think that my foundation was on the rock of Jesus like I thought or said it was. Because
Yeah.
when the real waves and the winds hit, it was like, man, I was swayed back and forth. So, I love the metaphor that you used, um, when you were talking about the house and the different pieces of the house. So I'd love it if you could share a little bit of that.
Yeah. Well, tying in the last thing you said to the current thing, I just, there's an old character quote that says, that character is not made in Christ. It's revealed. It's revealed in Christ. I think it's the same way with emotional health. It's not made in Christ. It's actually revealed. And so, in many respects, or in retrospect, I'm looking back at some of these things and going, okay, I have maybe taken inventory of my physical health, maybe a little bit more of my spiritual health, but my emotional health, I think
Mhm.
there's been some neglect, and so that leads into just this idea that in order to have a strong foundation for emotional capacity, our ability to be able to handle all these negative things and criticism and failures and things like that in a positive way, we're going to need to have three things, is what really I discovered. By the way, all this comes from Matthew chapter 7 verse 24 and 25, where it just says, it just talks about building a house, and building a house on a firm foundation, which is the rock, Jesus Christ. And then it says that those that do certain things, that put these things into practice, they'll never be
Mm.
shaken. They'll never be, knocked down by the storms, the wind, the torrent of life. And so I just wanted that for emotional health. And so I use this metaphor of a house and connected it really to our emotional health, that the same thing that builds a strong house is three things. It's one, we need a really healthy foundation,
Mhm.
we need a healthy frame, and then we need what builders would call finishes, like it's the beautifications, the decorations. The frame is the structure, and then the foundation, in this particular analogy, has to do with our relationships, or our
Mm,
relational connectedness. And
mm.
so, I don't know if you want to jump in, but in those three things, it's loaded with, instruction for, kind of emotional capacity and how to increase it and how to stay healthy.
Mhm. You know what I loved, which I don't think that I would have said that this was what allowed me to be healthy, but it was really community. I
Yeah.
was I was I was only as healthy as my relationships were, and I would have never said that years ago because
Yeah.
to a certain degree, when I was younger, I'm reminded of I had a mentor of mine that I really looked up to, and, I remember I was in his class, it was high school, senior year, stuff like that, and all of my best friends were in this class, and I remember every single day, he would, to lack of better terms, like, make fun of me, like, publicly embarrass me, and it was, like, senior year, and it was, like, all my good friends, I'm like, "Gosh, man," like and I got to the place where I was so anxious, like, relationally,
Yeah.
that I was like, I couldn't like, my social anxiety then was so crazy that I couldn't even have conversations without my entire face getting red, sweating, like, the whole deal. Um, and I didn't realize how much of an impact that had on my emotional health long
Mm.
term, like,
Yeah.
years later,
Yeah.
because it was like, I couldn't I couldn't have real conversation with people and build real relationships with people
Yeah.
because I was like, somebody that I really trusted betrayed my trust, and I
Yeah.
was like if I even talk to somebody, I'm gonna have social anxiety, so I'm like when I got here, I remember having a conversation with your son, and he was the first person to really teach me about relationships, and he was like, "Mike, you don't understand that the reason why you're shaking the way that you are right now is because relationship you need to get planned." That was the first thing you said to me too, which is crazy. The first thing you said to me, you said, "Mike, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to like serve. You don't need to serve. You don't need to lead," which is like some people think from like a senior pastor, that's what the conversation would be.
Yeah.
That wasn't the conversation that we had. From a pastor's heart, you told me, "Mike, you need to get connected relationally first."
Yeah. Because if you know, first of all, the scripture that we referenced earlier, it says, a wise man built his
Mm,
house on the rock. So there's a wisdom that's necessary to build a house or, a structure of emotional health as well. And that connectedness relationally, there's so much in there. Like you're only grounded when you're grounded relationally. You're
mm,
only fruitful if you're fruitful relationally. You heard me talk about this recently, Mike, where, we have a lot of Christians that are plant pots, but they're not actually planted. So,
yes.
so they're in a pot, right? So plants in pots, the best thing you can produce is a flower. They're pretty, but they never. You're only if something's planted in the ground with deep roots can it produce real fruits. And so
Mm,
a lot of people are looking for emotional capacity to, and safety and health. A lot of people look for relational. They're looking for, the ability to accomplish certain things. It's so connected to relational connectedness. And then the other thing too that I would just say, because you mentioned leaders from before and how they view people and the difference that you experience, praise God, at Connect. But I remember watching a movie years ago. I'm dating myself here. It was the first Superman movie, I think. And so you guys don't know anything about that. But anyway, I think it's Christopher Reeves, right? He's flying, and Lois Lane has fallen off this Empire States building, and he comes up and he grabs her and he's holding her. She's looking at him and he's like, "I got you." And she's like, "Well, that's great, but who's got you?" And the reality is there's no Superman too. So like somebody may have you like a pastor may be connected to you, but my advice to people that are out there is to make sure they're connected too. So I tell my church a
Mm,
lot of times that if you don't hear me talk about my overseers or my pastor or my friends in a certain period of time or certain season of time, you should be a little worried
mm,
because I can be telling you about emotional health, but it doesn't mean I have emotional health if I'm not relationally connected as well.
hmm. Do you ever do you ever feel like as a senior pastor, and you don't have to share anything specific, but the reason why I'm saying this is because I just read an article about a pastor that I really loved. I loved him. Like I watched so many of his messages and stuff like that, and he's no longer going to be working for the church and had a failure and stuff like that. Is it like, what is that from your perspective in terms of like, is it hard to be like vulnerable? Like your son, for example, just posted a video about being a PK.
Mhm.
And I thought it was so impactful, and it really opened up my eyes because I wasn't a PK and I didn't have like this experience growing up like that. So do you feel like that sometimes? Like sometimes it's hard to be like transparent or hard to like open up and stuff like that?
Yeah, no doubt. I know who you're talking about, and it hit me really hard. I think those things might hit me harder now than they did 25 years ago.
Mm,
Um, and my, because I want to stay malleable. I want to stay vulnerable because I think a counterintuitive principle is that vulnerability leads to stability. In other words,
mm,
it's so different than what everybody's fighting doing. So what happens is you go up a food chain, so to speak, in your own little pond, and you just you have a hard time being vulnerable anymore. And even though you have access, which was one of the things he said, he had access to all kinds of accountability and support and anything probably he needed, therapies. He probably could have had all this thing covered in a biblical sense, not overlooked, but covered and not concealed. But he had lost the ability to stay vulnerable along the way.
mm.
And so I think another sign of emotional health too is a consistent practice of vulnerability. I think it leads to stability. If you see this, I got
Good.
it, I'm good, and I have the victory, and you need what I have, indirectly or directly. I think that is an indicator sometimes of some of cause for pause. So, but I try to walk the line, and I don't think I do it perfectly, but I try to get as close to the line of um, transparency without being indiscreet or toxic or harmful to somebody else. Try to get as close as I can, even in public, even in even in a situation like this. But to be honest, when that hit me today, it, I was at the gym actually, and I was going to go and work out, and I read a text, and I sat in the parking lot and paced and walked and sat down, and I
Mm,
had a moment. I had a moment. I was probably it probably 30 minutes, and then I started thinking about all these other things, other people that I pastor. You kind of almost pinch yourself, like, am I okay? Like,
mhm,
if he fell, this is what I think people think. If he fell, then with what's going on. But I think you have to talk it out, and in order to work it out, and a lot of people don't do that. The kind of the higher up they go, the more influence they get. And I just pray, one of the takeaways, I just pray that as the influence increases, that I stay humble and that I stay
mm,
vulnerable. And
mm,
it's it's a it's tough to watch those things. I sort of see it as a black eye in the body of Christ, but God, Jesus is not concerned about his reputation. He's still gonna accomplish what he's gonna accomplish. But um, I think people do get hurt by it, and it makes it hard, for us that are in ministry right now. But we all can,
mhm.
if we think we're standing firm, be careful lest we fall. We're all vulnerable to those kind of things if we don't do the things that keep us emotionally healthy.
Yeah, and one of the things that I learned from you, I actually didn't even when I first came to Connect, I didn't even know. I heard the term or the phrase spiritual authority, and I was like, "What? What is that?" Because I'm like, and then I started to read Undercover. By the way, I read Undercover uh, as a recommendation from your son, and it it was like one of the worst months of my life because I realized in so many different ways. I'm like, man, I don't live. I just didn't even know. I had
Yeah.
no idea what that even meant, and that's one of the things I think I respect most about you, is that it's not necessarily even vulnerability to a mass group of people or from a stage, that kind of thing. But you've shared that you're vulnerable behind closed doors with the people that matter the most, under spiritual authority and under overseers, which I think is important for all of us to learn. I've learned that just being
Yeah.
under you.
Yeah.
I've seen that in my own life, and there's like a running joke with your son It's like I'm always messaging him with like different things. Like, hey, this happened. I want to be like, I want to confess or like confess anything that happened. I try to do it as much as I can because it reminds me, I'm like, I'm undercover. I don't need to be ashamed. Like the Bible says in Romans chapter 8, verse 1, like, I don't need to be like, there's no condemnation. Like, there's nothing that I need to be ashamed. I can be, and I've learned that I could trust the community that I'm in because it's life-giving at Connect. It's like, I learned that it's actually okay to screw
Not
up.
be okay.
Yeah.
It's
It's
okay to not be
okay.
okay. Yeah. Hmm.
Which I think is so important too, emotionally. And
That's
I've
part of
actually
emotional health, is to be okay with not being okay. Not too long ago, I reached out to my wife and another friend, and I was just like, I'm under attack right now. I'm not doing so good. I'm golfing tomorrow. I'm going to see my grandson tonight, so I'll probably be good later. But right now, I'm in a hole,
Mhm.
and I just want you to know about it so you can be praying for me. And, I just set that up. It's okay not to be okay, and I sometimes have to wrestle the Superman syndrome because people lean on me now more than any other time in my life. And so I just got to make sure that I'm leaning on somebody else a lot
Mm.
now, too. And we all need to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, I was reading a book. It's The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Wow. That's
Um,
great.
The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. It's funny because I wasn't planning on even, like, kinda going down this rabbit hole in
Yeah.
terms of, like, where I thought this year was gonna end for me. Because I started at UHE, which so, like, a new job, and it's sales. So, really in the sales culture, it's more like, "Alright, we're moving fast," like, sell like, my mentor, Mike, he's probably watching right
He's
now, he
intense.
says, You need to keep
Love it.
selling. You need to sell. You need to sell more.
A lot.
Keep Yes, keep selling. So, it's, like, in direct contradiction, though, to, like, the ruthless elimination of hurry, or at least I thought it was. I
Yeah.
thought it was.
Yeah.
And so, I think, we have a couple more minutes, so I'd love to to land here because I think it'd be really helpful just for people to see from a pastor's perspective what a real relationship with God looks like behind the scenes. The reason why I'm saying that, so I started reading this book and I started to learn about Sabbath, which I
Hmm.
was not doing the way that I should have been doing, like not
Sure.
even close. Like I said I had a Sabbath. No, not even. And so I was like, I had a deep conviction. And for the past 2 Sundays, I turned off my phone. I rested. I like took a nap.
Praise
Like,
the Lord.
wow. Like what a powerful day. I took a nap. And so what is your, I don't know, like maybe private time or devotion time and even like your Sabbath, just like really practical things that we can learn from you.
Yeah. I just want to qualify, like, this is a learned behavior, not a, just given for me. It did not come easy, and I still have to fight the, tendency to just work, 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 work. So I grew up in a kind of a workaholic home, where the association between worth and work were directly linked. And so I had to uncouple myself from identity being connected to work. And so, to the ones that have that tendency,
Mhm.
I think that would be just valuable to identify that's an enemy, and that way you can set up certain, rules of engagement, so to speak, and bring in other people to help you. So I had to have people to help me and hold me accountable to a Sabbath, knowing my tendency, knowing my inclination. Some people, need to be pushed the other way, and
Mhm.
they want to have fellowship with the pillow instead of go to church, and things like that. So that just wasn't me. So I've had to work at this, and I still have to work at it. But my day off is Monday. And Sabbath for me, one of the real heavy revies that I had with regards to Sabbath, this was huge for me. And it'll sound so unspiritual, but a lot of you people out there will love this connection. I was watching Bourne Ultimatum, with Jason Bourne, and there was just this segment where he's being pursued and trying to be killed, and in order to defeat his enemy, he said this phrase. He said, rest is a weapon, not a weakness.
Mm.
rest is a weapon, not a weakness. And it was just like, I mean, it exploded in my mind. I was mind blown. I was just like, God was speaking to me like, hello, hello. You know, you want to produce more, you want to do more, you want to achieve more. And you got all these hidden drivers that are influencing that. You'll get more done. You will be stronger if you can learn how to rest. So I think you've got to get some revelation about it if it's actually going to be a part before it's a routine, before it's some kind of structure that you try to employ, because you won't have conviction about it. But my Sabbath is no work. Simply put, I try to sleep in. I don't always do well at that, but I really like, I don't go anywhere like till late morning. Like I'm just putting around. I rest as I try to get a lot of sleep, because I don't sleep a lot. I sleep less as I've gotten older, and it kind of adds up. So I try to like bank some good rest. Sabbath is about recreating yourself. So I try to do something recreational and something relational. So I definitely will work out, but I'll probably do like my hobby now. And you and I have done this together, but I got bit with the passion to golf. And so
bit hard.
I got bit hard. I get bit so hard, and it is a beautiful thing. And so I love it. I'll go by myself. I'll go with a bunch of people. It doesn't matter. I got a healthy view, and I'm 52 now, so I don't have to like whip everybody's butt, and I can't, but I just love to do it. And so I feel so refreshed from that emotionally, sometimes, and even spiritually, and definitely physically. So that's a part of it. And then I try to like do something with my wife, my kids, my grandkids. So it's a high relational day for me. You know, sometimes I don't do a lot of study on that day. I might read things. I get into some books that, I'm not reading for, work, and so another thing too is I don't do a lot of intense praying. I know this is like really crazy to people, but like I just do what I call prinking. I pray and I think a lot because I'm outside. I hit pause, and like if God shows me something, I'll write it down in my phone or in a journal if I'm home. Every now and then I'll pull my Bible out and just kind of sit outside, or just kind of sit. I have a power chair and I just sit and just read, but I'm not studying. I'm really deliberate about not trying to produce content. And when I'm doing it good, when I'm doing it right. So if I start the Sabbath right, it tends to end better. But if I start out panicky or I violate my mornings, the rest of my day gets set off. So it's a short overview of Sabbath. It's a huge subject. It's the fourth commandment. And it's interesting how we would never think about violating the other commandments, like coveting your neighbor's wife or murder or lying, but we so quickly will abandon one of the fourth commandments, the fourth one. It's crazy.
It's because it's so countercultural. It's like,
yeah,
culture is like, move, like sell more. Mike Dudley, I can hear his voice in my head. Go sell. Like that's like culture. Culture's like, no, like I need you. No, if you rest, you know what I thought? One of the most impactful messages from you to me was rest as a weapon. I was sitting there because I'm geared toward, like, I'm more lean toward what, like you, like, I'm just like, let's go, let's move.
Yeah.
Like, I want to produce, create. Like it was just, but the thing about me though was a lot of it came from an unhealthy place because I received a lot of like affirmation and love.
Yeah.
And it was like, if you are working, you are loved. That's the way that I started to think. So then when you said rest is a weapon, I'm like, okay, but that means I'm not working. So like, is anybody gonna like love me?
Yeah,
like,
I had to come to another revelation that soul care isn't selfish care.
Yeah.
I just immediately assumed, lazy people take naps, lazy people take days off, we got to make hay while the sun shines. Like there was just all these hidden, passed down values that I adopted that also fed the monster in a sense, like you said, of affirmation or achievement and things like that being directly correlated to those things. But yet the most healthy people, when I study them, they have this great soul care, just great soul care. And the ones that have longevity, since we're talking about the fallen, throughout as a common thread throughout this. The ones that have longevity have great soul care, and Sabbath is a big part of many of those leaders' lives.
Yeah. I didn't realize I turned off my phone the first time. This is literally 2 weeks ago, where, like, I was like, "Okay, let me try, like, a real, like, let's try to really do this thing one time and see how it goes." I turned off my phone. I woke up the next day, and I'm like, "I don't know what to do, with myself." I'm like I'm just sitting at my desk, like, kinda, like, looking around. I'm like I'm like, "Okay. So, what do people do on a Sabbath?" Because I'm just, like, sitting there, like, thinking, but at the end, so funny. That Monday, the next day, I'm like, "I feel great." Like, there was, like, I don't know, a energy or, like, a health or, like, a vibrancy that I
Yes.
don't remember feeling in years
Yeah.
of just, like, taking one day and, like, actually taking a step back and, kinda surrendering, that kinda thing. But I wanna be respectful of your time, PD.
I'm here for you.
Let me ask one more, question. Um, what would you what would you say to somebody, maybe they're in a place right now where they feel like they're emotionally unhealthy? Like, this has been a crazy year. By the way, elections are mayhem right now. Every time I come home, the election stuff is on the TV. I'm like, "Ugh." Like, I wanna, like, rest after work. So, we're in the midst of, I don't know, turmoil all around us, COVID, crazy seasons, people losing their jobs, depressed, anxious, um, somebody who has maybe social anxiety like I had. What would you say to the person who maybe feels unhealthy, feels like giving up, feels like they don't wanna do this anymore? And what could we say to them to kinda build them up?
Yeah. Um, you know, I would just say what I'm learning. Like I said, I'm later in life and still having to learn this. I didn't know how to process pain and emotions. I just thought I'll take care of everybody else. I don't have time to take care of myself. But I think if you can talk it out, you have a better
Mm,
chance to work it out. Conversely, if you don't talk it out, I think you take it out on yourself, directly or indirectly. Talk it out, you work it out, you take it out on yourself if you don't talk it out. So, emotions were never meant to be swallowed. They were meant to be shared. We've got
hmm,
to we've got to share kind of what's going on. I heard a quote Rick Warren said, if you swallow your emotions, your stomach keeps score. And so these
mm,
things, they're going to really hurt you. And so I would encourage whoever's listening, whatever's going on, find a safe place. Or one of my pastors would say, Jonathan Del Turco, he would say, you need safe harbor somewhere. You need to play a safe
mm,
harbor where you can pull in, pull up, and just get it all out and get out from behind the fig leaf and just say, here's the naked truth. Here's where I'm at. Here's what's going on. And that's why I encourage people to, if you can, regardless of what's going on, assuming that you're healthy enough to do so, get back in the local church. You need people. God, people can hurt, but people can heal. But I think
mm,
there's godly people out there where you can just open up. They don't have to be super qualified. They don't have to have a lot of letters at the end of their name to be able to help you. You need to be able to, not swallow your emotions, but share them. So I would strongly encourage that. There's, our healing, James 5:16 says, confess your faults one to another, pray for one another that you may be healed, changed. And so, if we always said, if you want forgiveness, talk to God. If you want healing, talk to
it's
someone
good.
else. Talk to someone else. So that's one of the most spiritual things you can do. God set it up that way. He never wanted to just be you and him. He wanted it to be you, him, and other people.
Amen. Amen. That's good. Do you mind, just praying for everybody
Of course.
that's been listening and stuff like that? Especially for, I don't know, maybe for somebody that, um, maybe you've been listening to this and you've been in a very difficult season. Maybe it's a couple of years from now. You have no idea, even like COVID is not even in your mind anymore. But you've been listening to this, and maybe even you're a pastor and you've been in a season where, it's been very rough, or maybe you feel like you can't talk to somebody, or maybe you feel like, man, if I share this, then, like, I'm going to lose everything.
Mm,
I would just encourage you that, the righteous man, he will fall, but he'll get back up. And I believe even, under the leadership of, Pastor Deryck, I've seen what it looks like to be under a man who is willing to submit to authority, and the people under him who are willing to submit to authority and be in relationship and community and be in health, like, and to be vulnerable and be okay with being vulnerable. It's a good thing. But PD, I'd love for you to pray for everybody.
Sure. Well, God, I just take these precious moments to just to come before you and just ask you to do what words can't do, what information exchange can't bring about. Lord, I just ask that you touch the hearts of people that are listening to that maybe are struggling emotionally. Maybe they're battling a level of anxiety, angst, depression, Lord. And I just ask that you would show them that they can't handle it. That's right. But you can. You can handle it. There's something about that was even meant to be used in such a way as to bring us to you. When we come to that realization we can't handle these things, or that we would turn to you. So Lord, I just pray for the one that is hurting inside, that they would just turn to you, Lord. David said in Psalm 62, he poured his heart out like a pitcher. So just help my brothers and sisters to pour their heart out to God. And Lord, for the one that is disconnected from God, maybe far from God, I don't mean distant, I mean disconnected. You're not sure you're connected to God. So if you're there, if you're listening right now, I just want to encourage you to just call upon the name of the Lord. The word tells us that anyone, no discrimination, no separation. Sin can't do that, and your history can't do that. So, Lord, I just pray that if there's one there that's far from God that wants to come near to God, that they would simply call on your name. And you just say this, you just say, Jesus, today is the day of salvation for me. I choose this day whom I will serve, and I choose to serve you. And I believe you paid for my sins, past, present, future. And I want to be right with you. I want to be in your family. I want to be a part of the family of God. And I accept by grace through faith that you died for my sins, paid the debt, and you rose on the third day so I could overcome every day in this life. In Jesus' name, amen. Love everybody that listened. And I love you, Mike. Thanks so much for letting me be on this, and all your team. Props to all you guys. You guys are doing a great thing. What an honor.
Amen. Love you too. Thank you, PD. Thank you for hanging.
Yeah.
For everybody that was watching, we love you guys too. Next week, I'll be talking with Mike Dudley, and he will probably tell me on here to go sell something. So anyways, PD, love you very much.
Love you too.
Love you guys. We'll see you
God
next
bless
week.
everybody. Peace.